in the tree is the Dominator. Now the Dominator uses autocannons as its main weapon, it uses head-tracked missiles as its secondary weapon, and it uses ECM countermeasures as its countermeasure. Overall, it has middle of the range kind of firepower, relatively low armor, relatively low shield, pretty high speed, and its upgrades are for its shield, to give it more shield, for its speed, to give it more base speed, and for its autocannon shield damage. So the autocannons, as I said, are its main weapons. How do they compare to the Wraith's weapons? So the Wraith has Gatling guns. Gatling guns do a pretty average amount of damage to both shield and to armor. The autocannons on the Dominator do less damage to shield and more damage to armor. So it's a very effective ship at finishing off targets. It's also very effective on carrier assault at removing the turrets on the enemy carrier and the cooling towers across the carrier. It's also a real fantastic ship that synergizes really well with shield stripping ships, and the other fighters being the Accord being the primary shield stripping ship. There's quite a few supports as well which also remove shields. Again, it works really well with them because it can, if you're flying alongside a friend, you can get your friend to strip the shields of the target and then you can finish it off in the Dominator. It works out really well. If you are on your own, however, the tip for this ship primarily is to use its secondary weapon system, the head-track missiles, the same as what you get on the Wraith. Except on the Dominator, you try to use those missiles first of all to get rid of as much of their shield as you can, and then finish them off with the main guns. This differs a little bit with what you get on the Wraith. The Wraith, it doesn't matter too much when you use your missiles because it's just adding to the damage you're doing. Whereas on the Dominator, wherever possible, you want to try and lead with your missiles hitting the target and then using your guns. If you use your guns, depending on how well your target's flying, you may end up hitting your first sort of overheat level by the time your target actually ends up getting to armor if you haven't fired your missiles. So you want to try and hit them with your missiles if you can at all. It is very effective against heavies that aren't shielded again. If you're hitting them in the armor, it will tear them apart. But really, in all honesty, any ship that has no shields left, the Dominator will finish them off very well. As I said before, the secondary weapon system is that head-tracked missiles, the same as what we saw in the Wraith. You look anywhere in space, you hit that back left trigger button, and you'll get a circle appear. And if you can put that circle over an enemy target and they're in range, you'll see the missiles begin to load. Depending on how many missiles that you want to fire at them, you literally let go of that trigger once it gets to that number of missiles. Or if you just hold down the trigger with that target kind of in your sights, it will just keep them locked until you're ready to fire your missiles. Sometimes that's a wiser decision to do because you can see the target will fire off their ECM. After their ECM's finished running, you can then make the most of it and use your missiles against them, and they'll have no direct ship counter to your missiles. They'll have to use the environment or their ship speed. Which leads me quite nicely to the ECM countermeasures. Once again, it's the same as what we saw in the Wraith. It's the easiest way of just removing any missiles chasing you, or if anyone has a mag cannon firing at you, it will get rid of the mag cannon smart bullets from hitting your ship temporarily. It's great again for just using to get to cover, and then figuring out what you're going to do from there, making your shields recover, carry on using the environment to get your shields back up, whatever you want to do. And that's the Dominator. Now, in the one thing that it doesn't actually show here, which is obviously one of the upgrades for the ship. No, actually, I tell a lie. One of the things it doesn't show here is the capacitor. Now, on the Wraith, which is the ship I was thinking of, one of the upgrades is for the capacitor. But obviously you've got no stats here that relate back to the capacitor itself. The capacitor on the Dominator compared to the Wraith is lower. So that basically means that you're going to end up boosting less. As of the Carrier Assault patch, you have got an increase the amount of boost that you have. It uses less capacitor to boost, and it recharges quicker. But again, it's noticeably different compared to the Wraith. You can't boost anywhere near as far or for as long. So positioning is quite important. Making sure that you've got enough capacitor to perhaps pursue targets if they're going to decide to run from you is another good tip.